Hey, everybody. Thanks once again for joining us here at Yellowtail Talks Tech. I'm Rob Coble. I'm your host, and we're ready to go with episode number 2. Our guest today is somebody that I met through our infrastructure director, Thierry, and he introduced me to Christian Laguerre. A couple of months ago. We talked for, I don't know, maybe about 20 minutes or 15, 20 minutes. And most of that conversation was because I spotted those 2 bases behind him on the wall there. And I wanted to know a little bit more about that. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about tech, man. So, Christian, I can't thank you enough for coming on, man, and spending some time with us.
Rob, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So Christian is currently is a senior technical account manager at Amazon. You've been in tech for over 20 years now, right? Or right around 20 years or so?
Yeah, my gray hairs here sometimes remind me about how long my tenure has been in technology. But yeah, it's been about 20 plus years.
That gray didn't come from working in technology, man. Come on now. So, I want to give you a chance to kind of introduce yourself a little bit to, the majority of our students here at Yellowtail are second career. So, although we do attract, younger students that know this is what they want to do right from the get-go, a lot of our students are, trying to follow that passion for tech or after doing something that maybe wasn't really a career but more of a job. So tell us a little bit about how you got involved in tech and what was your why? Why did you get involved in tech?
Yeah, that's a great question. It goes back. I think the earliest memory I have is my dad having hey dad, hey mom, if they ever watch this, but was my dad bringing home a Macintosh SC 2. It was an Apple all-in-one black and white computer, and he had to use it, and he bought it, I think, primarily just to keep track of student grades and write some papers.
He was a teacher.
He was a teacher, yeah, high school teacher, now retired college administrator, but yeah, I took that machine and kind of claimed ownership of it and made it mine. At least on 1 or 2 occasions, completely disassembled it. I don't know if I ever got it back together in working condition the second time, but that's my earliest memory. And it really just sparked a passion in me. I loved looking at motherboards. I loved looking at the wiring and trying to understand what was going on there and understanding things at a smaller component. And that's been a passion that's just stuck with me. I got that bug bitten very early in life, and it progressed, and I haven't really looked back from that.
Well, it's cool to be able to make a career out of something you love, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
So looking at your resume and, the very first entry you have, you were working for a school, I believe, for public schools in Rockville. Were you doing IT there, or was that kind of before you really got involved?
Yeah, so that's exactly that was my first technical job. First job was working at a grocery store, which is good. I think that that built some character in me. But
shows you what it's like. You learned what it means to have a job.
That's right, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's really important. But yeah, Montgomery County Public Schools. I was very fortunate to have some great leadership there. Daniel, Steve took me under the wing as actually even before that, as a junior in high school, doing some internship work for them, pulling coax cable out of buildings, pulling old Ethernet out of buildings and running cable. And that graduated up into eventually being able to image machines and building my set of skills from there. So.
Okay. So this job happened after you finished your education and everything, correct?
Yeah, so I did this concurrently while I was actually going to college.
Okay.
So yeah, I attended Montgomery College for 3 years, got my associates there, and then moved to University of Maryland, University College. I think it's now called University of Maryland Global Campus, and earned my bachelor's degree in computer science, information technology there. But while I was doing that, had to pay bills, had to still take care of, just life, and getting myself through college. And so, I was fortunate enough to have a job with them. So it started as a high school summer internship, which then turned into a following internship the following summer. And then that school year, they needed someone to help with the Department of Special Education and helping keep their machines and their computers going. And so I was very fortunate to land that role and start providing desktop support to teachers and administration staff in MCPS.
Excellent. I don't think a lot of people really understand the true value of a good internship. I mean, obviously education was important to your development in technology and everything, but how important was it? How big a role did that internship play for you?
Oh, it was critical. To be able, and look, as we're talking about this now, and I'm thinking back to it, kind of shocked how much responsibility they gave me and how much attitude they gave me.
They gave you the keys to the Porsche.
Certainly did. Fortunately, I didn't crash the car, so that's good. But no, it was critical. I had wonderful mentors that shepherded me through learnings and understandings. I knew what TCP/IP was, but having to really manage an entire school block of IP addresses and be organized about how to handle that, looking for conflicts between devices. I had students that were sometimes malicious and figured out that if you plug in the network cable back into another socket, it would cause a loop and take down the entire building. So it was lessons like that you wouldn't otherwise gain if, and this is no discredit to anyone who's able to launch straight into a career someplace, and a really great job. Accolades to that. But sometimes having to do the hard things is really beneficial in building tech muscle memory, if you will, on some of those aspects that you'll lean on later. It helps with troubleshooting and it helps with having a critical mind of breaking steps down and looking at the bigger picture and then diving deep into a topic.
So from there, you moved into different, systems administrator, systems engineer, director of IT, DevOps engineer. You're currently a senior technical manager, right, at Amazon, or technical account manager. Was that always your goal? Or when you started out, did you have a pretty defined path? Like, this is what I want to be 20 years from now? Or was it, just like, oh my God, a kid in the candy store, what am I going to do next?
Yeah, certainly the second. It's definitely a kid in the candy store. At one point, my goal and aspiration was to be director of IT. I was fortunate enough to move on from MCPS to a couple of defense contractors in the Northern Virginia area. And I just fell in love with the position director of IT. That wasn't where I was at that point. I was still a system engineer, Linux system engineer to be specific at that point. But I knew that was a goal and aspiration that I wanted to achieve one day. I loved the idea of having ownership of not just the technical aspect of the business from IT perspective, but also the business half of it. And being able to bring those two worlds together and help make decisions that push the company forward and made a better environment for working environment for everyone. So I was fortunate enough to do that at CoolSpan in Bethesda, Maryland. And yeah, that was fantastic. But when you achieve a goal, I think anyone with aspirations is going to always have other goals that they want to achieve. And so like you said, it's just been a kid in a candy store. I have other things I'd like to accomplish in the future. But right now I'm enjoying where I'm at as a senior technical account manager.
Awesome. I love how you said make it, the environment better for everybody. That's just such a cool thing for you to say because, so many people, at least as a career coach, I talk to people a lot about cultures, the culture of the company. And, when somebody starts a new career, I'll often say that the job you get right after you graduate is probably not going to be the dream job, but it's the job that helps you get that dream job.
Absolutely.
And having so you don't want to just take any old thing. You want to make sure that you're somewhat strategic in is this going to help me get to the next level? And you should at least be thinking one level ahead. There's so many different branches that you can go out on. So what would you say were the most critical traits to help you continue to climb the ladder along the way?
Yeah, I think that there are two things that stand out. They're complementary, but they're very different. The first one is have a really good attitude. Look at where you're at and look at just the benefits that you have in the position that you're in. Whether it's desk side support, helping people reset passwords and fix their email clients on their phones. It may seem medial right now, but having a good posture and attitude will put you in a position where people recognize the work that you're doing and will give you accolades for it. And sometimes they're not accolades that you'll hear directly. Sometimes I just received a message from somebody 2 days ago for a conversation that they were having with someone else about me, and they just shared a screenshot, and it made my day to hear something that positive about something I didn't really consider that that impactful, but apparently it did have an impact on someone. So that is that's definitely part of it. I would say the other component is always stay hungry. We have a mantra at AWS that's always day one. And you should look at your IT career as the same. No matter what you've achieved, no matter what goals you've knocked down, you should always be setting a high bar for yourself. You want to achieve new results, not necessarily promotions. I think a lot of times it can be easy to get caught up in the promotion race and trying to get to that next title or that next pay bump. And those things are good. I'm not dissuading anyone from doing that or pursuing that, but have personal goals for yourself that are achievements that you are happy that you've achieved, right? And celebrate those because those are going to have a lot more meaning to you as you look at what's next in your career rather than just achieving some title or some particular pay band that you're aiming for. So.
Yeah, you can't just do it, I think, for the money. And I don't think anybody, we're going to talk a little bit about hiring in a bit, but I don't think anybody wants to hire somebody because that person wants to make a lot of money. Right. It's like, no, I want you to be passionate about what you do. So before we move into that realm, though, there's two things that I think are super important, and I want to find out how you go about or have gone about these in the past. So first off is I think in order to have a career in tech, you have to know what's going on around you. You have to know the trends, the fads, the new technologies, the big players and the big companies and everything that are out there. And then the other thing is you have to get involved. And as I'm looking through your resume and your LinkedIn, you're a guy that wants to get involved, man. You've done like a lot of extracurricular things that are super cool. But before we go there, let's talk a little bit about how do you keep abreast of what's happening in the tech world? Are there specific websites, specific journals, things that you look at on a regular basis, or is it word of mouth,
Yeah, it's especially in this day of social media, there's so many channels. It can sometimes even feel overwhelming. YouTube is your best friend, first and foremost. There is just a plethora of content in there. If you're looking to become a developer or just want to enhance your programming skills, there are numerous classes on just type in Python language, and you should come up with several channels that are great and have great content on it. And they're obviously paid channels. Sometimes people need additional support to get to where they want to go. Udemy is a fantastic resource for staying abreast on technology, but hone in on one thing and dive really deep in that and become excellent in it. But keep your ear to the ground. This thing is changing by the hour. 10, 15 years ago, cloud was a buzzword, and today it's literally how we do business. So yeah.
I think that's what excites a lot of people, that it's ever changing, and I've had how do I put this? I've been diagnosed as somebody that has an itchy brain. So I have to keep scratching my brain all the time, right? And I get bored if I'm just doing the same thing over and over and over. So I think that's why I love meeting new people and, learning new things. The world of Linux and cloud computing, everything is fairly new to me. And already in the first, 7 months that I've been with Yellowtail, it's like, wow. I mean, we joke about it a little bit. Like, if you need to know anything about the 7 layers, hit me up. All right, I'll tell you, man. The OSI model and all of that.
Nice. So, I like it.
But dreams that'll come. So the second thing, and again, this is something that I've always found to be true because I'm a big believer in networking. And pretty much my entire career, from when I got my first real job that I supported myself on through my entirety of my music business career, came through networking. So I tell people to get involved a lot. Yep. I've seen you've hosted some like conferences, like Ansible things, and you've done webinars and all these like fantastic things. Tell me a little bit about the benefits of doing those things.
Yeah, you nailed it on the head with connections and meeting people. I think a lot of us, especially in technology, tend to be apprehensive about taking on that risk of putting ourselves out there and meeting somebody new with no connections. But you have connections. Go through your LinkedIn, share with people things that you're doing. Ask people if there's things that you can help with. I've got a good friend. Met him. It's kind of a long story, so I'll try to make it short. But have a very good friend now. He lives in Colorado, Mike. And I met him through LinkedIn because I was interested in figuring out how to do some side work better and how to organize that better. This is an individual just somehow came up on my LinkedIn feed that was running his own business, and so I just reached out. I didn't know him from Adam. And we started talking. We got a phone call. That was 7 years ago, I think. We're still great friends to this day. We talk almost daily. He's been out here. I need to get out to Colorado at some point, but yeah, networking and connections is critical. Attend conferences if you can. I used to run, as you alluded to, Ansible DC, which was a meetup for Ansible. It doesn't have to be DevOps. It doesn't have to be a particular technology. Just getting involved in community, finding opportunities to help people, that will take you very, very far. Because people are going to have careers and change jobs, and they'll think of you. When you've had an opportunity to work shoulder by shoulder with them on an effort or a program. If you're a developer for that group, or even if you're in DevOps, I would say a stretch goal. Get involved in GitHub. There are a ton of open source projects that need additional code help. Even if you're not a developer, a lot of these projects also need QA help and feedback for people who are just willing to do some testing for them. Get involved in that. That's a fantastic way of building up a repertoire, getting into the community, into a particular community, and then also gaining skills just because you were involved in something that you probably wouldn't have otherwise touched.
Yeah.
You never know where that might take you. So.
Yeah, cool. Hackathons, security challenges, all of that kind of stuff. I mean, I came out of the game world, and there were just, at least a couple of game jams a year where people would just get together and they'd have 48 hours to make a game.
Yep.
And the amount of learning, not only the specific tech things that you need to do to make a game, but that teamwork and those connections and developing good communication skills and all of that, I think is super important.
Yeah.
I kind of miss, I think things here in Orlando are starting to somewhat get back to normal where people are starting to meet face to face again and everything. But there was a tech meetup, I think every night of the week, pretty much 30, at least 28 days a month,
Nice.
and you can only go to so many, but I absolutely think it's imperative. And I had a good friend that I used to work with back in the game world, and he was the head of a studio. Basically, he oversaw personnel for this studio. And when we would talk about networking, he would always tell me that he's like, you shouldn't network because you're trying to find a job. You should network because you're passionate about what you do. And this is where you go talk to other people that are also passionate about it, and you learn so much.
Yep.
So,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, it was like when we met, we could have sat and talked base probably for, like another hour at least, but we only covered Jocko and, who else, but, so anyway, let's move forward a little bit and talk some about, I want to know, for you to put on your personnel hat or your HR hat, so to speak, and you've been involved in, being responsible for bringing new people in, training them, doing all of that kind of stuff. What are the main attributes that you look for when you're looking to bring somebody new into your realm?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been blessed to have the opportunity to manage teams both inside and outside of Amazon. Hiring is such a big topic, and there's so many aspects to it. But I think once you do get that offer letter and you've accepted a position, really going in, being humble and listening, I think is critical. Oftentimes we come in to a new role and we may have just learned something or just heard something and we want to apply that technology as quick as possible. I think a good example of that happening right now in the industry is Kubernetes. It's fantastic. It's going to really enhance how businesses run on the cloud in the future, but it's also not the answer for every problem. And you get to see that applied oftentimes in broad strokes. So I would say that the one critical piece is definitely listening and keeping an ear to the ground on what that team is doing and what's happening there in that space. But the other component is going in and making sure that you're adding value to a team and that that team is getting the best work that you're able to produce. I think that aspect is really critical as well. You want to give your all. And I'm not telling anyone to work 100 hours per week. That's not what I'm saying at all. But making sure that you're putting your best foot forward and giving your best effort to is critical.
But even before they get to that point where they've got that offer letter, are there certain attributes that you're looking for in the new hire, like during the interview process?
Yeah, interviewing is definitely this is one that I have a lot of post-interview conversations on LinkedIn with candidates. Oftentimes when they don't get the position and the question is, hey, what could I have done better? So I think one of the things that I would say is it's one lesson I learned massively in my career is it's okay to say I don't know. It's better to admit that you don't understand a concept or understand a question or where someone's asking you for input than to try to dig a hole to an answer that
kind of BS your way through it.
Yeah, exactly. It goes to being all right a lot and insisting on high standards for yourself, to use Amazonian lingo. But that's certainly part of it. I would also say interview prep, right? You cannot I have this debate with one of my friends whether you can over prep for an interview or not, and he's of the opinion that you can. I am of the opinion you cannot. You need to get as much knowledge and understanding. So those are two different things, right? Knowledge is I know what something is. Understanding is I know how it's applied and I can produce results from it. And I don't think that you can over prep for an interview or a position, but you do need to understand how to restrain your responses to questions, right? So in that regard, you can never do enough labs. Even if you've done the lab 100 times, do it again. Put new constraints. Put what if we're talking technical, put network constraints on yourself, put memory constraints, CPU constraints, disk constraints on yourself. And there are blogs out there that you can look up how to do performance testing and how to bring a VM down in terms of performance that you can stress it. You can find out how things break under different scenarios. You don't need to spin up 1,000 instances to be able to stress test something, right? So if you understand, let's just pick something out for random, MySQL, right, which is a database engine, and you understand it at an intermediate level. You should be pushing yourself prior to an interview to really skill up and understand that at a deeper level. Understand it not just from the DBA's perspective, but also understand it from the system administrator and the DevOps perspective. So this way you can add value as you get a question on how would you deploy MySQL Server? Very standard question that many of us will probably encounter during our interview processes at jobs, large and small. But you can go beyond just the standard answer of whether it's Windows MSI installer or if it's Linux through a package manager like apt or yum. You can actually provide richer, deeper answers that provide the opportunity to have a conversation and back and forth and really develop a conversation with the person that you're interviewing with, and that I think will do you well, serve you well during the interview process.
I like it. Don't be scared. Be prepared.
Bingo. That's it, man. Yeah. I'm going to take that. That's okay.
So. Yeah. No, please. That's a Rob original there, but we got to spread it. Yeah. No, but I agree, and it's always going to be, everybody, no matter how old you are and how many interviews you've been on, there's always that certain, pit in your stomach or whatever when you get in there, that kind of fear of the unknown. And the more you know about what you're talking about, the less fear that you have. Yeah. And we at Yellowtail, once our graduates complete their internships, we put them through a series of 3 mock interviews. Okay. And it's amazing to watch how they go from sometimes, just no confidence, and they you could tell they know this stuff, but they just don't really quite have the ability to articulate it in a manner that we're looking for. And then you get to that 3rd interview and you're just like, my God, is this the same person? That's so awesome. Yeah, it's like practice, get together with your friends, talk a little bit to, ask each other questions and things like that. And I really like what you said. And I want to ask maybe to elaborate more on this. When somebody's doing a job search, I think it's important for them to, have a plan and kind of schedule their time out so they're not just sitting there spraying and praying, banging out applications, because you're going to burn out really fast. So, in addition to, doing follow-ups and networking, I say, always have some sort of project to be working on. Absolutely. What are some examples of some things they could be doing at home, say for like a Linux system administrator? Yeah, or a cloud engineer.
Yeah, for both. I couldn't agree with you more. I think that you have multiple options these days. Whether it's used hardware that you find on Craigslist, you should have a home lab. I'm not saying purchase 20 servers, but you should at least have one box. It doesn't have to run all the time, but a box that you're comfortable taking that box apart, understanding its components, not just the software that you're going to run on that box, whether it's Linux or something else, but also understand how do the hard drives connect to the motherboard? What backboards are on this thing? Know how to replace the fans on this. It may seem innocuous, but you don't know what job you're going to be walking into. It may be a job where you're in a seat working 8 hours on a cloud platform. You may have a mixed hybrid environment. That's that. Speaking about trends, that's something that's actually kicking off. Is a lot of businesses are looking at that hybrid model a little bit closer now. So you don't know what challenges will be in front of you tomorrow. So having hardware at home and just testing and pushing yourself on that hardware is great. If you are bent on just being in the cloud, you should have a cloud account definitely with AWS. I'd love to see more people sign up there, but you should have it with other vendors as well, um, and have that experience and understand what technologies are out there, and find the things that resonate with you. Find out what people are trending on, what white papers you can find, what blog articles are trending out there, what people are listening to. LinkedIn is you can go on LinkedIn all day and just find that type of content, right?
Agreed.
So yeah, so just get into that, and then find a service, a couple services, put stuff together, start building some labs. In terms of project work, everyone should have a resume. You should have, 12 bucks a year. Hopefully, isn't going to kill anyone to have a domain name, and with that, with S3, you have a website, right? So you should have a website, and that's a place where you can showcase different things that you're doing, right? This is an opportunity during an interview when someone asks you what's an API call. It's not something that you can just speak to. It's something that you can demonstrate. You can say, oh, well, my personal website, I have I'm going to use a guest book. I don't think anybody uses guest books anymore, but yeah, it kind of shows how old I am. But yeah, you could have, something that you are making API calls back to API Gateway, for example, maybe tying that into DynamoDB. And those are just 3 pieces of technology right there that shouldn't cost you much, less than probably a couple bucks per month to run. So plus everyone needs a lab.
Yeah, and the people that do that, man, I mean, talk about a show of passion. It's like, right. Again, wow, you do all this at home. Imagine what you'll do when we bring you in,
Right.
So my next question is more going into the networking thing. We're getting ready next week. So I do these little live sessions every now and then. Last week we did the how to answer the tell me about yourself question. And next week we're going to do a session on how to properly follow up. How important is follow up to you when you're either meeting somebody new or especially when you're interviewing them and everything?
Yeah. This is you actually touched on an interesting topic. So it's not something I see often, but when it happens, it definitely is a good taste in my mouth. And that is a thank you letter to your interviewers. Whether you can get to them or not through their email address is irrelevant. They're most likely on LinkedIn. And even if you can't get to them, getting it to HR and asking them to share that letter with your interviewers, that's critical. It has been a decision-making factor.
Nice.
When a team has
a nice touch of class,
It is, and get that in. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It can be 3 or 4 sentences. Just thank you for your time. I think everyone appreciates hearing that, and something special that you gained from the interview, whether that was the conversation that you had or some knowledge that you picked up from it, and just saying thank you and getting that over just an email over to HR, or if you have the person's email address directly to them. It may not get you the job, but you never know. It might as well. And it has been a deciding factor for me with a couple of candidates. So.
Wow. Yeah, I would imagine, if you're down to 2 people and one takes the time to acknowledge and thank you, it's going to give them a little bit of an edge.
Yep.
And, I loved your story about your friend Mike. You reached out to them and now, you guys are visiting each other in person and everything. Yeah. Was that scary for you to do that reach out?
Yeah, absolutely. You you never know, who's on the other side and what their perspective is, if they're having a good day or a bad day. But I think this goes back to my comment about having a good attitude and looking at perhaps the world with a glass half full perspective, and understanding that people are just people at the end of the day, and everyone still has the same type of things that they enjoy. Everyone enjoys being appreciated and complimented. So, thanking that person for their time and having a good rapport with them, you never know where that can go. So, yeah, certainly. But you need to take risk, right? Life is all about risk. You decide to go get a coffee later today. You're taking risks going over to the coffee shop, right? So this is a different kind of risk, and I would argue that the impact is probably less so. So yeah, make that reach out. Go see that person on LinkedIn, even if they have a big title or There's a couple people, I won't mention names, but they're people that you will see on YouTube that have a large following that I've reached out to and said hello and made a connection with, and we've had conversations, and that's really neat to have the ability to have that type of connection and be able to ask a couple questions and have just a dialogue. And so I would encourage everyone to do that.
Yeah, I think I've been working in and around the tech world for about 19 years now. From the career coach perspective, but getting to meet a lot of people, and I find the tech world and gaming and in that to be some of the most benevolent people I've ever met. They're always interested in having that chat or finding out what you're doing or learning something new or helping out, and
Absolutely.
I think that's really important. And I tell students 5 years from now, you're going to be getting those people hitting
Absolutely.
you up. So,
Yep.
what goes around comes around.
Exactly. Pay it forward.
The people you meet on your way up, you run into on your way down.
Yes,
so
that's
be
true.
Nice to everybody.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
So, my last question or my last topic that I want to dive into is no surprise probably to you, and you've probably talked about it millions of times, but I want to get your take on the so dreaded imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that I'll give you an example. I mentioned the 3 interviews that we do. And when we do our, the very first mock interview, most of the students I talk to are like, well, I'm afraid, I'm nervous. And I'm like, no, the first one is awesome because that's the litmus test, man. That's going to show you what you need to work on and everything. So I've got my own thoughts on imposter syndrome and everything, but what advice do you have for people to just eradicate imposter syndrome from their lives forever?
Yeah, for sure. This is it's interesting you mentioned that. This is a topic that has come up at AWS in the past year at least. There's an entire support channel that we have around it. In fact, the first thing I would say to anyone is that everyone's dealing with imposter syndrome, right? So you're not alone. That's one. 2, the fact that you aren't alone and everyone is dealing with it, take solace in that and understand that this is something that that you may never be able to completely, be able to walk away from and not feel. I remember the first time I ran Ansible DC and I was staring at a room of 40 people. And I hadn't prepared anything to say specifically. We had an agenda. I had a speaker and we were going to do things, but I was so busy trying to get the space, get the drinks, get the food. I hadn't set aside time to really think about how am I going to
what am I going to do?
Say to these people, right? Exactly. So I had to kind of wing it. And public speaking, I'm not afraid of it, but I'm not necessarily good at it either. So, but definitely in that moment, with that many eyeballs staring at you, it's intimidating. So I would say be true to thyself. You're not alone. It's a natural feeling. Prepare. Being prepared lets you, lean on that as you're going forward into whatever it is that you're challenged with. But just know that it's not something that's uncommon. You're not the only person going through it. Everyone feels that. Even in topics, for me, whenever I'm in a high stress situation, something's gone down, a server, and you got to bring it back up. I know the things I need to do, but you've got people over your shoulder looking. People are asking you, "Hey, when's this thing going to be back up?" It's stressful, and so it can creep in there. But just go back to the basics. Breathe. Take a second. It's going to be okay, and press forward with your troubleshooting and everything that you've learned through your career and your time at Yellowtail and all the other things that you've absorbed through your time. And don't be afraid to ask for help. That's the other big thing. It's totally okay to ask for help. Never feel bad about asking for that. Do your homework and prepare.
And like you said earlier, sometimes it's okay to say I don't know. It's I think that what you, the person, bring to the position is what's going to help you get your technical savvy noticed in the first place. And if you're the type of person that is a good communicator, team player, passionate about what you do, willing to learn and all that, you might not need to be at the top tier technical guy right away, because they know they can get you there a lot easier than they can get you to be that good communicator, that good team player. So I lied. I got one more question based on that.
That's okay.
That I'm going to ask. And then I know you've got work to do too, but this is the interview question that everybody loves to answer, and I'll ask you to answer it. Sure. Because I know throughout your awesome 20-year career, there have been times where you've failed. Absolutely. And what comes to mind when I ask you to tell me about a time you failed, but what you learned from it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I ask this question not every interview I do, but I just did a round of interviews, 5 of them this week, and every single interview I ask this question: tell me a time when you failed or dropped the ball. I've definitely got plenty of those. I'll give you 2. One's humorous. One was a turning point for me in my career and helped me launch to where I think I'm at today. I use it as an accelerator. So the first one was I lost a server one time, which sounds ridiculous, but these things are huge. They're 50 pounds when they're loaded with disk, and a typical pizza server is like 19 inches. They're massive boxes. You shouldn't be able to lose one of these things. When you put them in the back of your car, you know that it's there because it's rattling around. But I managed somehow to lose a server once. We found it. It had gone to storage. We were moving out of a data center into a different part of that data center, but we had to vanquish and get out of that space. And so we had to move some of the boxes to storage. And in the process of doing that, we moved some of them back to our office and some of them to a different location. And we thought we had figured out where everything was, and one of them got left behind in a storage closet. It took a couple weeks, but we did find it. So fortunately, we were using at the time VMware, so we were able to recover pretty easily from that. But it is kind of embarrassing losing a box. But that's my funny one. My more serious one, though, is the time I got let go from a position. I won't say the company, but it was definitely a learning position, learning opportunity as well. It was a stretch goal for me. Again, goes back to chasing titles, chasing pay bands. For me, it was going to be a big pay band bump and a really cool title bump. And so I went for it. I was there for, I think 3 months. No, probably 3 months, maybe 3 months. I think maybe 3 months. And it wasn't working out. I did not have the skills for that role in that position. But what I learned from that role and position, and it was anytime anyone who's listening to this, if you've been let go, whether it was because the company was downsizing or because lack of performance, let me encourage you with this. That's the best thing that ever happened to you, because this is an opportunity to take those lessons, learn from them, and apply it. And that's what I did with this. There were some things that were outlined that I was deficient in that position. And for that reason, they were going to separate, which is fine. They were correct. I was deficient in those areas. But what I did between then and my next role is, because I had some free time on my hand, I became excellent at those skills. One of them I'm still getting better at, but of the 3 things that they listed, 2 of them I would call myself a subject matter expert in. Really? So yeah. So good for you, man. Yeah, thank you. So when you're down, pick up something, a book, a YouTube video, discover something, take some time for yourself, some self-care there, but pick back up. Don't let it be a loss. Let it be a new chapter that's going to be an opportunity to move forward.
That's incredible advice, man. Life is only 10% what happens, but 90% how you react to it.
Man, that's good stuff right there. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people would, wallow around in their self-pity for a little while and, but you turned it into gold, man. And that's awesome that, you're able to brush it off and learn from that experience. So are there any last words of advice or wisdom that you would like to impart on our students?
Oh man.
You've already thrown out so much good stuff. So
thank you. I appreciate
don't
that.
feel obligated.
I would just say stay hungry. It's day one. Keep pressing, keep learning. You're burning, I know it's tough. You've got other responsibilities most likely. And it may seem like it's daunting today, but you will get there. Stay humble, stay hungry, and keep going for it.
Christian, I can't thank you enough for coming on and talking to me, man. This has just been awesome, and it's been very educational for me. I think we're going to bestow upon you the title of nicest guy in tech.
Thank you.
It's it's both times that I've talked to you, man. It's like I just want to reach through the screen and give you a big hug, man. So,
it's mutual. It's mutual.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, man, and I do appreciate you coming on. I know you're a busy guy, so hang tight for 2 seconds. And for those of you that are watching or listening, I want to thank you for once again tuning in to Yellowtail Talks Tech. We will be coming soon with episode number 3. And if you have some ideas on topics or guests that you would like to hear from, please do not hesitate to reach out to me through our Slack channels, or you can find me on email at rob@yellowtail.tech. I hope everybody's doing well, and I look forward to talking to y'all soon.